What was your "it can't be that easy, it was that easy" moment? Story 1. I got a salary request when applying for a job and accidentally wrote double what I meant to write since the number keys were right next to each other. They accepted anyway. Not me, but someone I know. Got a new job, asked for 60, thinking 60K per year, and the employer agreed to $60 per hour. This is how they found out they were severely underpaid at their previous job. If the employer agreed to $60 per hour that fast, it makes me wonder what you could have asked for. Story 2. I wanted to meet my favorite band, so I just quietly didn't leave the venue once security started showing people out. I guess they thought I must have been a roadie because they never got on my case. Anyway, I met them, yada yada, and now I'm a professional concert lighting designer. I feel like there's a lot missing to this story in that yada yada. I'll have to try this at my next gig, but I feel like I'll just get thrown out. Results may vary. Story 3. One hot summer night, we had a severe thunderstorm that hit my area hard. Power got knocked out everywhere around me, so the next morning, they're able to get the power back on and all of my lights and appliances come to life. Finally, except for my 65-inch TV that I bought 2 weeks prior. Obviously, I tried to turn it on, unplug and plug it back in, etc. Tried every single thing I could think of, and after hours and hours of attempts and endless research online, I came to the conclusion that my TV was just donezo. I figure even though I had the proper power surge protection hooked up to it, it must have just gotten fried in the storm. I was devastated. After hours of reading sites and forums about how to repair it, I found a post on a forum that describes the exact issue I'm having. It said all they did was get a hairdryer and blow warm air into the back of the TV aimed at all the internal junk. I said to myself, there's no way that works, but what have I got to lose? I grabbed a hairdryer and aimed it into the back of my TV for about 7 or 8 minutes, and then plugged the TV back in and boom, it comes back to life and turns back on. Crisis averted. Not too sure why it worked, but I was ecstatic to say the least. I'm actually speechless. I wonder what else you can fix with a hairdryer. Do you think maybe mental health? No, probably not. Story 4. I was drunk at a party and I saw a cute girl. I stumbled over to her and literally said, "You're cute, can I have your number?" Nearly a decade later, she's sitting next to me with our child asleep on her lap. Sometimes getting the date is just that easy. To shame her even further, she was sober. I was blitzed enough to silence all my normal second guessing and internal thoughts that get in my own way. But she had a drunken nerd just straight up ask her out, no small talk or anything, and decided that it was a good idea. I feel like this has to have a bit of a step 1, be attractive, step 2, don't be unattractive thing. This definitely wouldn't work for everyone, but there's no harm in trying. Story 5. I hated every job I'd ever had. At 18, I joined the military for 6 years. That sucked the whole time. And then I went into customer service at Walmart, and they were extremely rude to everyone. I tried security, and they were just degrading. Job after job, I was just doing what I thought was the right thing. I decided to apply for a local HVAC company, just working at a call center. Nothing big. I think there are a total of 9 of us on the phones. Honestly, it's the best job I've ever had. We all get along and spend hours a day on our group chat sharing memes. Our management has one-on-one meetings every 2 weeks to say, this meeting is not work-related, but we just want to know how you're doing. How's life treating you? What do you need? There's constant communication about expectations and how we can better meet them, and how they can help us perform better. The majority of the company's profits are used to better employees' lives. I get monthly commission, residuals, and health insurance, along with monthly potlucks, paid lunches, and competitive pay starting at $17 an hour. I haven't seen any turnover, literally none. My position was only hiring because too many people got promoted. Story 6. In my late teens/early 20s, I landed several good admin jobs that require a degree I didn't have. Turns out when they said bachelor's degree, they just meant sound middle class on the phone. Edit. There seems to be some confusion with people thinking I faked credentials. I didn't lie. I just sent in my resume that listed my previous work experience with a professional cover letter. Then I made sure to call after hours and leave a follow-up voicemail. All they really needed for the job was someone who can write a professional email and sound good on the phone, so they'd call me back for an interview. Meanwhile, my new colleague has a master's degree and is a complete moron pretending that he's good at his job. Yeah, that guy's educated beyond his intelligence, said a former coworker of mine who was close to retirement. One of the sickest burns I've ever heard. Story 7. I was at a locally well-known upscale restaurant one time. I had ordered sweet potato fries, and it came with the most amazing dipping sauce I'd ever had. Tanging, spicy, the whole package. So I figured I didn't have anything to lose, and I asked the waitress if I could have the recipe. She said she'd ask the chef, but of course I figured they'd say no. A short time later, she came out and handed me a photocopy of the recipe, and that was that. I've made the sauce a few times since, and it's still just as amazing. The Wall Street Journal used to publish the recipe for the signature dish from a different famous restaurant restaurant every Friday in the 1990s. The recipes for 4 servings used to start like this: take 24 whole sticks of butter. People started complaining that the recipes weren't healthy enough, so the Journal asked the chefs to modify the recipes to make them low fat and sugar. And you guessed it, the complaints started pouring in about how the recipes didn't turn out very good. The Journal then discontinued the feature. Story 8. Overcoming a lifelong speech impediment at 22 years old. A lot of the common knowledge around speech impediments is that if you can't beat the thing by the time you're 10 or so, that's pretty much it for you. The idea is that your speaking patterns have become so ingrained at this point that you basically have to accept that you're stuck with rhoticism, a lisp, stutter, etc. for the rest of your life. This was the explanation given when I was cut from speech therapy in 3rd grade, and a big part of why it took me until the age of 22 to return to speech therapy as an adult. I assumed this issue was stuck in stone, and that I was kidding myself by thinking it was something that could be fixed. Anyway, it turns out that common wisdom was all crap. There actually is no deadline for when you can fix a speech impediment. You just need to be given competent speech therapy. So my lifelong lateral lisp was gone within 2 sessions, and my lifelong rhoticism, can't pronounce R's, was gone within a month. It was awesome, but also, really, it was that easy? I could have had a happy, normal childhood this whole time, but I just didn't? Because the adults in my life thought the issue couldn't be fixed back when I was only 8 years old? Well, that sucks. Big L for me. Honestly, I think a part of growing up is facing the brutal truth that the adults in your life were only human, and they didn't know as much as you thought they did. Story 9. Applying for my Irish passport. My dad was born there, so I'm a naturalized citizen. I hate paperwork, so I avoided ever filling out my application. Turns out it takes 10 minutes online. Story 10. Negotiated for a new job. I had 15 years in the factory industry, decided I was breaking my body and went for a desk job. I also wanted a job that actually gave me time off, as I was sick of having to work 60 to 84 hours a week and not having holidays. You know who has holidays off? Banks. I was able to get a banking job. Alas, it paid minimum wage, and I quickly learned I could not handle that. So I applied at other banks after only working at this bank for 3 months. Got offered one job at a bank and accepted. Got a call from another bank who asked me to interview anyway just to see. I went and honestly liked the area I'd be working in with this new bank. Apparently everyone was aware I had accepted this other job but wanted me anyway. By telling them that, I had inadvertently given myself leverage, so they called that day offering me more than what I'd asked for. If I had known that, I would have asked for more. In the factory industry, because I had so much experience, it was frankly easy to get any factory job. I knew that gave me leverage. Since I had virtually no experience in the banking industry, I didn't think I had much to stand on. Apparently, if a place wants you enough, they'll fight for you, and always ask for more money. Sometimes they say no, but also, sometimes, they say yes. Story 11. The power steering failed on my Acura. My local Acura dealership wanted to charge me well over $1,000 to fix it. I bought a power steering pump on Amazon for $70 and found a YouTube video that explained how to fix it. I don't have any car maintenance experience, but it only took a couple of hours to do the job myself, and it worked like a charm. Story 12. I was recently looking for an apartment, and rent in my city, like most cities currently, is outrageous. So after 3 days of looking, I found this 2-bedroom apartment with a price that normally would get a roach-infested studio or 1-bedroom in a bad part of town. But these apartments looked nice. They're in a good part of town, the reviews online are all positive. I can't figure out the catch. Then I see there was a year-long wait list for this place, but I decide to go to the leasing office, and after talking to the property manager, I get bumped to the top of the list for an apartment that becomes available next month. I keep waiting for the bottom to drop out. Most people spend months looking for places in my city, and they'd be paying a third more than I'm paying at a minimum for a similar place. I looked for 3 days and found this place, but I think I just got lucky, and it was just that easy. I had a similar experience. Back in April of 2021, my landlord broke the news that he was selling the house that we'd lived in for nearly a decade once the lease was up in June. Obviously, with the housing crisis, panic set in. My significant other was browsing Facebook Marketplace and saw a rental posted for less than an hour. It was for a 2-bedroom house in a perfect neighborhood for only $650 a month. It almost seemed too good to be true. He was able to set up an interview with the landlords. Once we saw the house, it was perfect. It was a cozy little craftsman built in 1914, and it's within walking distance of my work. My first words once we walked in were, "This is home." The landlords loved us, and we have an excellent rental history. They ended up canceling their other interviews, and we moved in 2 days later. I don't know how we lucked out so much, but I do know that I love my house. Hey, please like and subscribe if you've made it this far. I hope you'll enjoy the rest of the video and have a wonderful day. Story 13. Changing my bathroom faucet. I'm a 56-year-old woman that's never done any plumbing before. Turns out YouTube is a wealth of knowledge. It really wasn't that hard. I get joy every time I wash my hands knowing I did that. I'm an HVACR tech. Wanna know how much I Google and YouTube stuff? Basically, every day. Basic plumbing like you just did is a lot simpler than most people think. Before I got into this trade, I tore apart the entire front end of my car and repaired it using YouTube and Chilton manuals. 51-year-old guy here. I knocked the drywall out on one of my bathroom walls and replaced a bunch of plumbing behind it. I had never done any plumbing before. I put new drywall back up and installed a new toilet and vanity. I had never done any of this before and was quoted some outrageous prices to have it done. A month ago, I replaced our 1950s bedroom door with a new solid wood door. 20 or 30 years ago, I would have had to hire someone. YouTube is great. I love when middle-aged people end up loving the internet instead of hating it. Story 14. I went to the bar one night with some friends and ran into a girl that had worked for me a few years earlier. I said hi, chatted for a minute, and then she asked me where my girlfriend is. I let her know that we broke up a couple of months earlier. She says, "Oh, cool. Well, I'm here with my friends and I'm going to hang out with them, but if you want to hook up after the bar closes, I've always wanted you." I blinked about 10 times in a row, said, that sounds awesome. And we did. I used to manage a store and had a girl that worked for me who was obviously very into me. She was 17 at the time and I was 23. We were closing one night and she came up and asked me to take her back to my place, which I denied and told her that she was way too young, but she was persistent, so I jokingly told her to call me when she was 21. I quit not long after and forgot about her. A few years later, I got a friend request and lo and behold, it was the girl. She sent me a message letting me know she was 21 now and gave me her address. Couldn't have been easier. Story 15. Tying shoelaces. When I was a kid, no one ever managed to teach me how to tie my shoes. I remember never being able to get that last step that ties it all together, and in general, I suck with knots. I would have been garbage in the Boy Scouts. I got into my early 20s relying mostly on Velcro shoes, but one day I sat down with a pair of new shoes, determined to figure it out. I put one on and tied it correctly on the first try. I just sat there dumbfounded for a few minutes wondering how it had been that easy all along. I married into a pretty big family who are all starting to have kids. Every now and then a lefty turns up, and as the family's designated left-hander, I get called upon to teach them to tie their shoes. It's apparently totally different depending on if you're a left or right-handed person. Story 16. Sophomore year of college, my buddies were throwing a party at their house. One of them was a moderately successful DJ in the local college scene. We're having a good time and the DJ was doing his thing. Then he had to pee or go do something. So he taps me on the shoulder and asks me to just stand at his turntables to make sure no drunk idiots mess with them. He already had songs queued up, so I literally just had to stand there. About 30 seconds later, 2 women walk up to me and start telling me how much they love the music. I tell them it's just a playlist and I'm just keeping it running, but they're still super impressed. A few minutes later, the actual DJ comes back and I have to give up my post. Then one of the girls comes up and tells me to dance with her. One thing led to another, and we ended up having a friends with benefits relationship for a few months after that. At one point, I told my friend about the girl I'd met while covering for him at the DJ booth. He laughed and said, "Yeah, sometimes it's really that easy." It was the only time in my life I've had a glimpse of the Rockstar life. As someone who has DJ'd a couple of house parties in my area, I can confirm OP is dead on. You don't even have to do fancy effects or mixes to get labeled a god. Every time I see a DJ with women behind the decks, I have a little giggle. Story 17. I was at a bar on a work night just for a couple of drinks with a mate. I briefly talked to a girl at the bar while I was ordering a drink. I left an hour later and said goodbye to her as I was walking out. She asked if she could just come with me. I said, "Oh, I'm just going home," to which she said, "Yes, I know." It completely hit me out of the blue. I was like, "Oh, right, yeah, you can absolutely come with me." I was suspicious and confused about it, but all went well. Turns out she had been stood up for a date and just sat there for an hour or so by herself. I was just in the right place at the right time. We had a good time and we shared good banter that night and the next morning. But no, we never saw each other again. She spent $60 on a wax and wasn't going to waste it. In my experience, behind every guy that says, "It hit me out of the blue," there's a woman who was trying her best to hit on him for at least 30 minutes. During all of my years on the roller coaster of being single and dating, I had one too easy experience like this. I was out celebrating a friend's birthday at a bar in a college town. He was finishing his doctorate. I was long out of school. It was the end of the night. There was a pretty girl by herself at the bar waiting to order a drink. I was grabbing some for my friends and asked if she wanted one too. I handed it to her and asked if she lived in town. She said yes, she lived at a sorority. Half joking, I said, "Show me." So she did. That's it. That's all it took. Getting picked up at a sorority the next morning by my buddy and his fiance was pretty funny. Story 18. When I started my ADD medication, I never knew how life could be and how easy it was to just get up and do stuff. It changed my life for the better, and I've managed to turn so many things around. I can't believe it took me 18 years to get diagnosed. I started 4 days ago as a middle-aged dude with a house and kids and all that fun stuff. Game changer. I didn't realize how much mental effort I needed just to function day to day. I literally reduced my mental load by 80% and everything feels so easy. It's like I just got high prescription glasses for my brain. My cousin seems permanently stoned when she's not medicated for her ADD. When she first started taking Ritalin, everyone congratulated her for finally getting off drugs. She was like, "What are you talking about? I just got on drugs." Story 19. Fixing clogged drains. Started out because my sink drain plug wouldn't stay up. Poked around under the sink and found the pop-up rod had rusted completely through and was broken. It cost me $5 for a new one at the plumbing supply store next to where I worked at the time. It took 5 minutes to figure out how to swap, and now I know how sink and shower drains come apart, which makes unclogging them simple. Maybe it's just me, but in my brain it seemed like that was something I'd have to call a plumber to come fix, but it's all remarkably simple. First time I went over to my now wife's house, she mentioned that she accidentally clogged the bathroom sink with a bottle cap. Challenge accepted. I disassembled the drain, got the cap, and had it back together in 10 minutes. Pretty sure that sealed the deal right there. Story 20. I found a 60-inch TV by the dumpster. I plugged it in, but it obviously didn't turn on, so I looked up common problems with the model number, bought a part on eBay for 20 bucks, replaced the part, and then I had a huge TV. I was given a TV because the audio didn't work on it. On the back was a sound on/off button. Back in the late 80s, my grandmother gave me her old 13-inch black and white TV because she wanted to upgrade to color. I was excited because having a TV in my room was awesome. I was even more excited when I turned the color adjust knob up and the black and white TV that she'd had for 20 years suddenly had color. She was not such a fan of this revelation. Story 21. Suing someone in small claims court. It was surprisingly easy because my case was rock solid. I had professionally printed documents of evidence, witness statements, and precise records sent over to the court, while the defendant did literally nothing but send unlabeled loose printouts of my Facebook page as her so-called evidence. It was a very quick judgment for the plaintiff. Story 22. Getting a job working for the US Department of Defense. I'd always thought that those kinds of jobs required prior military service and a whole lot of various degrees or such to actually get a job with them. I saw a job opening for one site near where I lived and thought, what the hell? So I applied. I honestly didn't expect to even get a call back or anything. Not only did I get a call back, but I got hired for the job. The requirements were far more lenient than I expected. All it really required was a clean criminal record and a willingness to learn. I ended up working as a wastewater treatment tech for them and eventually got an environmental engineering degree with their help. So, what do you do for the Department of Defense? Let's just say I deal with a ton of crap. Story 23. When I lived in Jersey, a friend invited me to a commercial audition at a New York City bar. I agreed to go because of the bar. I auditioned after 2 beers and left thinking it was a waste of time. A month later, I got a call that they wanted to use me for the commercial. The director happened to be the guy who directed the original Space Jam. I got lines and ended up in 2 of their commercials. Then, I got a $40K payday where I thought someone made a clerical error. I started my acting career and am now a writer, director, and flight attendant. Story 24. I had been a drug addict and a criminal since my youth, always in and out of jail. I never held down a job more than a couple of months, and I spent years unemployed between jobs. I never thought I would like work. I never thought I would make more than minimum wage, so why try anyway? I got clean at age 25. About 6 months later, I had my CDL and my first job with an actual adult wage, which was about double minimum wage at the time. I stayed at that job for 7 years and worked my way up to number 6 in seniority in the whole company before moving on to greener pastures and starting my own company. I have been my own boss for 11 years now. It's like the minute I quit using, I also quit being a loser and was immediately successful. Yeah, it's crazy what quitting drugs will do. On a real note, no matter how long you've been battling your addiction, it will always get better after you decide to help yourself. Story 25. Honestly, after being incredibly broke, I remember how easy everything suddenly seemed when I had money. Car broken? Get it fixed. Sick? Go to the doctor. Need a babysitter? Hire one. Money makes everything so much easier and less disruptive to life. I knew I'd made it when I put my bills on autopay. Money doesn't buy happiness, but it does buy stability, and stability leads to happiness. Life is so much more enjoyable when your number one focus isn't survival. Story 26. self-improvement and reflection. I stopped looking at outside factors in my life and started looking at what I could control: weight, time, who I spent time with, etc. I didn't need to change my whole life in one day. I needed to make small progress. Spending one less day a week gaming and one day a week spent on improving myself is better than not improving at all. Allowing myself to fail with intent to improve is so much easier now that I don't spend time with negative people that demand perfection. I think a lot more people should know that it's okay to do this. I recently started doing this thing where instead of planning out everything I have to do, I just say, today I'm only going to worry about the dishes. And what do you know? It's easy to find motivation to do the dishes if I'm not thinking about everything else I have to do afterwards. Story 27. One time, I tightened my gas cap and the check engine light turned off. Yep, that's the title right there. It really was that easy. Thank you so much for watching until the end. Please leave your story in the comments. I would also love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks again, and see you next time.